Hello fellow weebs, it's Mayo at it again with another video. So today we're doing the third installment of Zero Hero, which I already have two other videos on. It's basically a series where I compare two random anime that have a strong theme of heroism, and basically I compare the two based on which one has the better heroes and which one has the better theme of heroism. And in a lot of these different shows, they have a different explanation for how heroes are treated or what it means to become a hero in their own separate universe. And that's especially true for the two series I'm talking about today. And so moving on with each series individually. So today I'm doing a video on Naruto and Code Geass. Of course, with Naruto, I'm including like all the iterations, including Shippuden and Boruto. And for Code Geass, I'm including all the seasons, so season 1 and 2, or R1 and R2. And basically, in Naruto, it's a lot more clear-cut as to what a hero can be, but it's just that you have to prove it with your own accomplishments. But Naruto, just being like the nice kind of guy he is, he can kind of talk opponents out of doing like certain things that would be considered atrocities or something very bad. But it's different in Code Geass, where Lelouch can use his Geass, which is basically the abilities in this world, and his ability is basically that he can command one person to do whatever he wants, and each person he gets one command to give to. So basically, he works completely differently from Naruto, but they still have the kind of same ability to like talk to people and talk people into or out of doing certain things. So it kind of creates a parallel between the two of them and a bigger connection to how they portray heroism in both of their own universes. And in Naruto, it's more about like how you can continue to build yourself up, and strength is kind of compared to your ability to be a hero and a leader. And for someone like Rock Lee, for instance, he had to work hard to just be seen as someone that was strong, even if he didn't have any sort of jutsu. So he eventually accomplished a few things, but he wasn't seen as like someone that was completely heroic, and he wasn't seen as a child, as someone who was worthy of being a hero or someone that could be like Hokage or something. But with Naruto, it's more like he could eventually build up power, and because he was given something like the nine-tailed fox, it was a lot easier for him to access those things and move on into becoming someone like a Hokage, or someone that's just respected throughout his village. Yeah, and you see in Naruto, like once the pain arc ended, that Naruto had already become a hero to his village, and he had already achieved the thing that he originally set out to do, which was to be acknowledged by the people around him, even if he wasn't doing that by becoming Hokage. So he kind of achieved his dream of being like a hero to the village, but his eventual end was when he became a hero to like the entire shinobi world, and eventually gained enough power to do so. So it's kind of like a scale and an escalation, but he still did the thing that he had wanted to do like his entire life before he had achieved his final goal. But he was still more happy to achieve his final goal than the thing that he originally set out to do. So it kind of shows how he like evolved, and eventually his goals and preferences changed to what he wanted to do when he had become a full-fledged Hokage and a full-fledged hero of the shinobi world. But completely different with someone like Lelouch, because as we've seen throughout the series, and as the series continued, we saw him become more of an anti-hero, and for spoilers for the end of Code Geass, he basically pinned all of the blame for everyone's hatred in the entire world on himself, so that the entire world would be better. once he was killed, and then the entire world would be at peace because they no longer had the tyrant there that was manipulating basically everything that was happening in the world for the past however many years. So he became a completely different type of hero in his universe, and someone who was able to save the world by becoming the villain. So he's the hero of his world, he's just not the conventional way, and he's kind of the opposite of your regular hero. And in a show like Code Geass, there are obviously different factions at play, but there's obviously someone like Suzaku, who in the world of Code Geass, there's a bunch of different like world powers, but there's this Britannia that has taken over everything. So he's siding with his own oppressors just to eventually get to a goal that would involve saving the world. So he's kind of like a different example of a hero as well, that's not trying to necessarily do like the heroic deeds by taking down the army in like kind of conventional, straightforward, going at it way, but he's doing it in a more passive but eventual build-up kind of way. So everyone has their own approach to heroism, and in a world like Code Geass, it's very much so not your average example of like more of like a hero's journey type thing where you kind of go in a straight line to eventually defeat your opponent like in a very conventional way, like someone like Naruto, who eventually just kind of followed this path where he kind of had a lot of bumps along the way, but he still had this power, and he took a direction that's like most like the hero's journey of the main shonen that I've seen in the past recent years. Whereas something like Code Geass, which is probably more of a seinen by definition, is not as typical of an example, but still something you might see in another form of media, even if it's handled in a completely different and unique way. And through the two other iterations that I've done with this, I've also learned a lot about what heroes can be like and what their motivations can be. And a lot of certain characters, they either believe themselves to be heroes of the story, and people like that usually end up being the not completely heroic people in the story. And Naruto, I wouldn't say that he thinks himself to be a hero necessarily. I would say that he had his goal of being Hokage, and he didn't really care as much about what came along the way, like what I said earlier with Pain. Like that was his original goal, to be acknowledged by the village, but he ended up doing that way earlier than his final goal of becoming Hokage. So it just goes to show that even if you're kind of obsessed with your own goal, then you don't necessarily have to complete it in the way that is supposed to go out in your regular stereotypical hero's journey story. And then you have someone else in Code Geass, like Lelouch's father, who is the king of Britannia, and basically you get to see that he also believes himself to be the hero of his own story, and that he's bringing upon this kind of new change to the world that will eventually make it complete or better in the way that he views it to be. So he's kind of forcing his own ideals on others while believing himself to be this kind of hero, even if he's a lot more tyrannical in the way he accomplishes his goals. And obviously we've seen throughout the story about how he acts that he is not very heroic, but he's much more of a villain-like character in the ways that he either acts in certain situations versus in the world of Naruto, which, as I said before, acknowledgement basically equals your amount of heroism. And I wanted to go back to Rock Lee, who is not your conventional example of a hero, and he started to get less and less shine as the story continued, because we've seen that there's this kind of debate of hard work versus natural talent, and Rock Lee had this kind of hard work, but eventually as Naruto continued, you had this thing of different talents and jutsus being the thing that could actually take down villains, and someone who just has physical strength like Rock Lee is not going to be able to do anything in a world that's based in powers and abilities. So eventually he just got cut out of the story, and we barely even saw anything of him by the end, because heroism in a world like Naruto is defined by a set example, versus in Code Geass it's more of a very much free example of how you take it and how you use it to accomplish your own goals of defeating some kind of tyrant, saving the world, or whatever else you need to do. So who I would say is the best here is most obviously Naruto, because he kind of had that progression and he is the best at being a hero by definition of his own world. And then for the ones I would say is number 2 and number 3, I would say it's Rock Lee and then Suzaku. And then for the ones that represent the theme of heroism, I would say is probably Lelouch number 1st, Suzaku number 2, and then actually I would say it's Rock Lee again, to be honest. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. If you liked, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, please share it around as well. I'm trying to keep the channel growing. I've been having 6 subscribers for like however long now. So please, if you did like it or anything I discussed, please do subscribe and all that other stuff. So yeah, that's it, and bye.